B-side.
Accentuate the positive.
Always look on the bright side of
one bad movie at a time.
Welcome to Your Movie Rocks, an alternate ending podcast where all movies are great movies.
Even the bad ones?
Especially the bad ones. I'm your host, Mandy Albert, and with me this month is a voice you have, as I always say, heard before, unless you have not, in which case go listen to the podcast episodes that she is on. We have with us recovering cinematographer Cameron Shaw. How you doing, Cameron?
I'm pretty good. How are you today?
I am swell. I love talking about great movies with people who have given me great movies to watch. If you are joining us for the first time, this is how the show works. For every show, my guest will assign me a movie to watch, and we discuss the movie. Just like the 10,000 other movie podcasts you listen to, except that there's a catch. No matter what, I am only allowed to say nice things about the movie. My guest can say whatever they want, but me? Only nice things. And furthermore, only sincere nice things, and not, I loved that I could only find the French dub and therefore couldn't understand any of the lines.
Oh, no.
That's not actually true
good.
For this one. Though I do have a funny story about that.
Okay, great. I look forward to
But
it.
if I have nothing nice to say, I'm lying, because every movie does something right. What I mean by that is that so my husband watched this with me.
Okay.
And beforehand, to kind of get us in the mood for the movie that we were about to watch, because it is a music movie, we decided to listen to some of the music that comes from said movie. Mm-hmm. And so I, looked it up on YouTube and clicked on the first link that I found, which, as it turned out, was not the original music for the movie, but some kind of, slowed down recording in a language I didn't understand that we've decided was Estonian, even though it probably wasn't.
Okay.
And I was going, I don't remember this song sounding like that. I remember it being a little bit more chipper than that. So anyway, if this recording gets you in the mood and you decide to go listen to this band afterwards, make sure you scroll down to the third or fourth YouTube result. And now that I've made everything very mysterious, so to speak, Cameron, would you like to tell us a little about the movie that you picked for this month's Your Movie Rocks and why you picked it?
Absolutely. So I gave Mandy the 1967 Beatles film Magical Mystery Tour. And in thinking about how to describe this movie, I decided I better just write this down because it is an absolutely bizarre film. I realized I looked through a bunch of Letterboxd reviews, and nobody I know on Letterboxd beyond Tim and Mandy has seen this movie. So shout out to Tim for having seen Magical Mystery Tour. So I decided I'm just going to write the plot description out because it seems like nobody has watched it, and perhaps with good reason. However, here we go. So it's a 1967 Beatles film. One that is almost universally despised because it was not exactly what Beatles fans expected after the heights of A Hard Day's Night and Help, which had come.
Oh, this came after A Hard Day's Night?
Yes. So this
God.
is yes. In the Beatles' trajectory. So 1964 was A Hard Day's Night, and that was, the introduction of the Beatles to America. And then I believe Help was 1965. And Help was a little more bizarre and psychedelic. They were sort of starting to go that direction. But it still had a plot. So this film, it was a TV special for the BBC. And similar to maybe the Star Wars Christmas special, it aired right after Christmas, and it was originally airing in black and white. So, which, as if you've seen the film, it's
dear.
Yes, it's a very colorful. There was not a lot of, let's say, contrast in that it was shot for. So, it looked like crap on black and white British BBC One television sets. Now I'm completely off script. I'm just talking about it. Yeah. So, it's So it's an hour-long-ish, I think it's 52 minutes or something like that, TV special.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and Beatles fans were sort of clamoring for something like this because, as I said, 1964 was A Hard Day's Night, 1965 was Help. Then in 1966, they stopped touring. And so this was sort of in this like muddy period of what are they going to do next.
And so my Beatles knowledge is actually fairly deficient. I was always a Stones girl growing up.
Cool.
When they released these, did the movies come first, or did the albums come first, or did they kind of come out concurrently?
You know what? That's a good question about A Hard Day's Night. I don't know about A Hard Day's Night which one came first. I'm also not like a Beatles scholar. I've just always been a fan. So I don't have all of this stuff memorized.
That's fine.
Yeah. So I don't really know, but I do know for this one that Magical Mystery Tour was, I'm pretty sure the album was released first. And somebody can feel free, fans, to write in and correct us about that. But in the UK, the album was released differently than it was in the US. The US added some songs like Hello Goodbye was not on the original UK release. And I believe Baby You're a Rich Man. So the album that we know in the United States is different from what was originally released. And then,
so what I'm hearing is that for the United States release, they added the normal songs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with a couple exceptions. There are a couple normal songs in this movie. But anyway, let me get back to the quote-unquote plot of this film. The plot is that Ringo, known in the movie as Richard B. Starkey, and his Aunt Jessie, who I'm fairly sure is a fictional aunt, she was played by an actress, but I don't know that he actually has an Aunt Jessie, are going on a magical mystery tour on a bus. And apparently these magical mystery tours, I don't think they were called that, but they were frequent in England in Paul McCartney's childhood. And Paul McCartney was sort of the driving force behind the creation of this film. He had kind of been exposed to like the London art scene. He had heard some things, I think, about Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters and their fabled bus trip across America. So I think that is part of the inspiration. I can't quote Paul McCartney on that, but that seems to be general consensus, is that he was sort of dabbling in psychedelic art, and this was what he wanted to do with that. So in his childhood and youth, there were these magical mystery tour type tours that would pick you up and take you to a mystery location, which usually was Blackpool Pier, which is like an amusement park, I think, in England. It's like a resort town, I believe. And
I love that idea, though. You just get on a bus and they're like, we're going to take you somewhere. You don't know where it is. It could be the middle of the woods or...
Yeah, it's like the most exciting analog that I can think of to that right now is like the bookstore near me has some books that are wrapped in brown paper and they are discounted and you can choose to buy one and it's just a surprise what you're buying. And I kind of love that. I've never done it, but I kind of love that.
No, we had that at my old used bookstore near me growing up. We had romance novel grab bags where you just bought a paper sack of mass market romance novels for $10.
Yeah, nothing wrong. I mean, that's great. I think that it keeps life exciting, right? So
it does, and this takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah. So Ringo and his aunt get on this bus, and it is filled with a variety of characters who we sort of meet and sort of don't meet. They all sort of have their little time to shine, but it can be very brief, or it could be much longer. And they go for a tour around the English countryside, and often the stops on this tour are like a field in the middle of nowhere with a tent set up, and everybody goes into the tent, and it you go down, and there's a there's a nightclub show happening in this tent that they have all somehow fit into, or they get out in a field and there's a random relay race happening. There's not a lot of through line in this film. It is very much it's kind of a bunch of whimsy put together with things that Paul McCartney had either dreamed, like a sequence where Aunt Aunt Jessie is being served what I used to think was spaghetti, but now to me it did not on rewatch look like spaghetti. Lots and lots of food, gloppy food, served by John Lennon with a shovel, just piling it onto her table.
That was John Lennon.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew most of them played multiple roles in this, and I was kind of keeping an eye out for them.
Yeah.
But I feel like John Lennon is weirdly nondescript when
Yes.
he's not wearing his John Lennon getup.
Yes.
So I did not recognize him as the waiter in that scene.
Yeah, so especially earlier John Lennon, I can see what you're saying. When I was a kid, I really had a hard time telling the Beatles apart, like in A Hard Day's Night. But later, he kind of becomes the long-haired, like little tiny glasses caricature
Yes.
John Lennon that we know. But yes, so this is earlier in their looks trajectory, and so that is essentially the plot: is they get on this bus and it goes weird places. It's kind of a fever dream, and I'm sure that they were just having fun experimenting with their 16mm camera. Richard B. Starkey is credited as the cinematographer on this film, and it is ostensibly directed by Paul and John. And I, as a kid, rented this because I wasn't raised to believe that the Beatles were the best band in the world, but they were sort of our family put the albums on in the car band, and I was not aware that they could do anything terrible. So in that respect, I think I came to this film with the same attitude that the British public probably did when they first saw it air. Like, the Beatles can do no wrong, so this thing exists and it must be great. But I, as a 9-year-old or 10-year-old perhaps, renting it, didn't have the critical eye that maybe adults might have had. So I assumed that this was great, and I probably just didn't understand why. And
I love that.
Yeah. So my dad introduced my brother and I to Monty Python when we were very little. He would sit there with the remote. He had all these episodes taped on VHS, and we would fast forward the parts with naked women. And other than that, we would watch a lot of Monty Python. So I think that prepped me to appreciate British humor a bit. I always thought that John, his particular sense of humor was very funny. There's a joke in A Hard Day's Night where he's being interviewed by a reporter who says, "How did you find America?" And he says, "Turn after Greenland." And which is a great joke. And as a kid, I was like, that is the pinnacle of comedy. And I don't know why.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know why I locked onto his particular like deadpan delivery, but I feel like I appreciated it in this film as well. It's very much kind of...
I wonder if that happens with, like, the first person who ever really makes you laugh in a way that sticks with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd
Because that kind of happened for me and Robin Williams.
Uh-huh.
And I know that's not I know finding Robin Williams hilarious is not a unique take or anything. But I think because Aladdin was kind of my first exposure to the concept of comedy... Mm-hmm. I latched onto Robin Williams for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good one to latch onto if you're...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You could also do worse than John Lennon with Turn After Greenland.
I know. So yeah, I think I was a bit prepped to like their style. It's very tongue-in-cheek with the, like, poking fun at, I think, everyday British people, who a lot of whom are kind of on this bus. They're just regular people. And yet also kind of embracing them and, you know, putting them forward on screen as, like, these are regular people and they're off to have fun, and let's appreciate that. I don't know what else to say about it. But I love this movie.
That's a good a transition as any into the reasons that I loved this movie.
Okay.
It is one hell of a trip through, like, the weirdest parts of the 1960s condensed into less than an hour. Mm-hmm. And yes, it is also very, 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 very British. Like, there is British oozing out of the TV screen. Mm-hmm. I kind of wanted to speak in my own British accent, which is terrible after seeing it. And possibly my favorite part of this weird trip through the 1960s is the insane 1960s fashion show that we have going on throughout it, beginning with Paul McCartney's rainbow sweater vest. That was the first garment that I took note of. And some truly amazing skirts. Like, the skirt game in this movie was wonderful, and my only complaint, if I have one there, is that none of the Beatles at any point showed up in any of the skirts.
Yeah, and you'd think...
But we have some great, like, post-poodle skirt fashion going
very
on
mod.
here.
There's a lot of mod stuff in here.
Extremely.
Yes.
The get-ups during the I Am the Walrus scene are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm particularly fond of the, like, geometric psychedelic suit jacket that John Lennon is wearing during that one. But everybody else's button-up, like, curtain suits are pretty incredible,
with the
too.
high collars and, like, yes.
And the buttons that are clearly, like, stolen from somebody's grandmother's couch.
Frumpy.
Like, you would never... No one would ever be caught dead wearing this outside of the universe of this movie, but it's perfect for everything that's going on. In part because, and this is why it's such a tragedy that most of its original audience had to see it in black and white.
Right?
The colors in this are incredible.
They are incredible. And I believe it was... So I read a couple things about this before this show because I realized I don't really know a whole lot about the generation of the film, but generation, like the impetus for the film, is by that I know a lot about baby boomers. I think that it was aired again a couple months later on BBC Two, which I guess had the ability to air color. But
okay, good.
But it was almost too late because it had been critically absolutely trashed by then. So,
well, at that point, everybody's seen it in black and white and gone, what the hell was that? And isn't that a crying shame? Because, it's the same feeling that you get, I think. I don't remember the first time I did this, but I feel like it must be some of the same feeling you get from watching The Wizard of Oz for the first time when Dorothy arrives in Oz and everything just assaults your eyes in the best way possible.
Yeah.
I'm especially thinking here of, like, the sunset shots in the Fool on the Hill sequence, which that in itself, too, is just... Paul McCartney has never looked so happy in his life, I don't think, as he does when he is... Is that dancing? Is dancing what we call that movement that he's doing throughout?
I would go with traipsing through a field. In sort of slow motion
through a field.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes in a distance, there were a few moments where I was like, "Oh, I'm watching Lawrence of Arabia again, but without the camels." But it's such a. I'm struggling with adjectives here, so I'm going to go with the lamest one I can think of. It's such a nice sequence.
Yes.
He just looks so happy to be alive. And you can understand because of the environment that he's occupying at that moment and how bright and lively and inviting and colorful it is. And it's just a joy to watch that entire segment of the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
The characters on the bus, speaking of joyous, are quite a little motley crew. I can't talk today.
It's okay.
Quite a little motley crew. The dynamic between Richard, Ringo, and his aunt is something. I'm not sure how one of them or the other managed to convince them to go along on the Magical Mystery Tour bus.
Yes.
But my very favorite sequence in the film, I think, is the dream ? Sequence where Aunt Jessie is being courted by, what was his name?
What is his name?
Buster Blood Vessel?
Blood Vessel, yes.
Mr. Blood Vessel. Mr. Buster Blood Vessel.
Yeah, and he thinks that he gets on the bus apparently every day and pretends to be the person who's hosting the tour. So he at one point stands up and talks, and then he professes his love for Aunt Jessie. And yes, it's unclear whether that really happens.
And then they go through this entire fictional ? Courtship that's, again, like traipsing through mountains and valleys and visiting the beach. And eventually there's this lovely little proposal scene on the beach where he draws a heart in the sand around her and then gets down on one knee. And it's especially nice because neither of these are conventionally attractive people.
Yes.
And yet the romance between them is portrayed so delicately and beautifully that I don't know how you could not be touched by this, even if you are seeing it in black and white.
Yeah, and they're also older, obviously older than the Beatles were if she's Ringo's aunt. And I agree. That's one of the parts that I remember very clearly from watching in childhood. And I think I didn't quite understand why it was so sweet at the time. But now, as a person, in my 40s, like, it's lovely seeing 70-year-olds or whatever find love. That's great.
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially since her nephew was kind of a jerk to her throughout the entire bus ride.
Yes, he certainly is.
Yes. What else do we have? I liked the car race again, question mark? I always feel a little weird confidently asserting that a thing has happened in this movie. Because it's more like my interpretation of a thing that has happened. But I certainly understood it as a car race when the cars are really fast. And that feels like a very silly positive to have for a movie. But it's a fun sequence. The cars go fast, just like cars should. Everybody's having fun.
And then isn't it the bus that ends up winning the car race?
It is the bus that ends up winning the car race. The bus outruns them all.
Yeah. Yep.
Just like, I feel like I really do kind of wish that I too had watched this as a kid. Because I think I would have been utterly mystified. But I suspect there would have been stuff like that stuck with me just because it feels like it's appealing to my inner child that way.
Yeah, I mean, the scene that, and maybe you're about to mention this, I don't know, but there are a few scenes that really, like, stick out to me that I have always loved since the first time I saw it, and I've seen it a few times since. I owned it on VHS. Probably do still somewhere own it on VHS, but I brought it to college.
Choice.
Yeah, I brought this VHS tape to college with me, along with, a few other movies, and but one of the scenes that really sticks out, and as one of the reasons that I love this movie, is the Your Mother Should Know, like, Ziegfeld Follies-esque number towards the end, where the Beatles are all in these white suits, kind of just dancing down a set of stairs on a big old set, and there are other dancers behind them. First of all, I love that song, and I did know the music from the album before I saw this film, so that was already one of my favorite songs. Watching it again yesterday, I really appreciated how earnest Paul McCartney is as the person singing that song, and next to him, how clearly snarky John Lennon is being about the entire...
Oh, the contrast between them is so good.
The stupid dance they're doing, and, like, he's clearly like, this is dumb. I'm going to make fun of it without actually saying anything about it. And then George and Ringo just look a little bored.
It's true.
But Paul McCartney is in for that entire
I also
number.
really can't tell George and Ringo apart.
Okay. Ringo's the shortest one with the biggest nose, is how I remember.
That's how I can tell, is that he has the biggest nose, but he's got an identical haircut to George Harrison.
Yeah, well, if you watch Help...
They've also got identical mustaches.
Have you seen Help?
I have not.
Okay, you should. It's great in its own right. It's very bizarre, but if you watch that, you will know Ringo from the others afterwards, because he's the main character. He gets this giant ring stuck on his finger that is a worship symbol for a cult. So then the rest of the movie is this cult trying to chase Ringo to cut off his finger.
Did they just decide that Ringo was the actor in the group? Like, he was going to star in all the movies?
That's a great question. I don't know why that... It's not the case for A Hard Day's Night. They're all in it. And Paul, I would say, is maybe the most featured, because Paul's grandfather is on the like, journey to the TV show that they're doing in A Hard Day's Night. But there is, like, a portion that features just Ringo. So I don't know. Great question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. He seems pretty game for most of his role throughout the movie.
Yes.
And yes, of course, during Your Mother Should Know, we also have Paul in his black carnation.
Yes.
In contrast to the red carnations that everybody else has, which I assume means that Paul is dead.
Right. That's a good question. I bet that is probably cited as evidence for Paul being dead.
That one I did look up to see if that was connected to the Paul is dead theory, and apparently, yes, that is one of the key clues that Paul is dead. Indeed. Speaking of Paul, we've talked about Fool on the Hill. The Magical Mystery Tour itself isn't really like a musical sequence, I guess, because it's a performance. But I feel like you have to address the various performances in the movie because that's the point of the movie to some extent. I didn't know Blue Jay Way was in this.
Yeah.
I loved that song already.
Yeah, okay.
And George was always my favorite Beatle. I love the performance of Blue Jay Way in this. I love the filming of it. I love the staging of it. I love the chalk piano on the ground.
Yes.
I don't know why they're doing that, but I love how seriously George Harrison seems to be playing this chalk piano on the ground.
Yeah, and it really is George's only real moment in this film. He kind of takes a back seat to he and John are both not particularly centered. I guess John does have the moment where he's grinning and shoveling pasta of some sort onto the table.
Whatever that is.
But
John kind of gets the center in I Am the Walrus for a bit.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. I stand corrected. Yeah, this is
not to the extent that George does in Blue Jay Way, though.
Yeah, this is definitely George's 3 minutes of screen time, and otherwise he's sort of in the background. Which, you could say that is kind of his role in the band, as he was quietly a good musician and wasn't as much the front man as Paul and John were.
And every so often they would shove him out to the front and he would be amazing, and then he would quietly tiptoe to the back again.
Exactly, yeah. Just a side note, and, this is maybe just a little sappy, but the first real memory I have of Tim in our dorm when we were first becoming friends is the day George Harrison died. And
oh no.
Yeah, it was my freshman year, and I was very upset and knew that I could go to Tim's room and there were all these people there listening to the Beatles when I got there. And
oh, that's lovely.
I'm sure
I'm sitting here anticipating an embarrassing Tim story, and instead I get something beautiful and kind and sentimental.
Yeah. So Tim, thank you for that moment in my life. It was definitely not the first time we met, because obviously I already knew you were a Beatles fan, but it is really the first clear memory I have. Yeah.
Aw, that is lovely. And speaking of lovely, I would have to say that my favorite musical number in the movie, though, is When Irish Eyes Are Smiling, when the entire bus does karaoke with it.
Yes. Yeah, and I was sitting there thinking as I watched that last night, I wonder if the scene in Almost Famous where they all sing Tiny Dancer was some kind of weird homage to this. Probably not. However, I like thinking that maybe Cameron Crowe grew up with this film as well and made that vague illusion.
You know what? I could see it.
Yeah, because they sing a few songs, and they're all having so much fun, and it's like this just moment of camaraderie between this very strange hodgepodge of people on the bus.
This very strange hodgepodge of people who have also had their tensions and scuffles. Mm-hmm. It's one of the only spots where Ringo and his aunt aren't yelling at each other.
Yes, good point.
And yeah, it's also towards the end of the movie when everything is starting to wrap up and we're approaching the end of the Magical Mystery Tour, and everybody has become friends over the course of this unbelievable weirdness that they have been put through.
Yes. Yeah.
It's also just nice to see, actually see, not just hear the weirder side of the Beatles.
Yes.
Especially as people who didn't grow up in the Beatles era and couldn't just, see them whenever they happened to show up on TV or if they were on tour or things like that.
Yeah, and I read a few reviews, way later reviews, not when this first came out, but 30 years later, of this movie that were calling it sort of the beginning of the transition in popular culture from short pop rock songs to longer album era, and a little more experimental psychedelic stuff. And I can see that interpretation. I'm sure that's like simplifying things a little bit, not having actually lived through that. I can't really make my own declaration, but it does make sense in terms of the actual Beatles transition between, because I think this also, it came out right after Sgt. Pepper's, I believe right after Sgt. Pepper's, and so Revolver was around then too, and those were kind of the two like big transition albums towards their later iteration of embracing Hare Krishna and, you know, I forget
of embracing their weird side.
Yeah, exactly. And just things that are not just straight up British, proper, clean lads from Liverpool.
And indeed, there's so much making fun of proper British things in this, including themselves to quite an extent, that you can see them almost consciously crossing over the, I guess I can't call it the Rainbow Bridge because that's an actual thing, but let's call it the Mushroom Bridge.
Okay. I like that.
Seems accurate.
Yes, that's great.
Crossing the Mushroom Bridge.
Yes. Luckily, none of them crossed the Rainbow Bridge at this time, at least. So.
Indeed. That would have been, I mean, their trajectory was sad as it was, but that would have made it even sadder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. What have we not covered? The whole thing is shameless and fearless.
Yes.
I get the impression that most of the fearlessness was kind of coming from Paul McCartney's direction. Since this seems to have sort of been his baby, but they're all here.
Well,
nobody looks like they're actively trying to escape until we get to the vaudeville sequence at the end.
Yeah, I do think that they were in a place where they had every single thing that they had done had been met with critical acclaim. Even Help, which is a bizarre movie, people enjoyed it. You know, it didn't rise to the level of A Hard Day's Night, but this is really... So the other thing that happened right before this is their longtime manager, died. And I wonder how much that...
Oh, this was post Brian Epstein.
This is post Brian Epstein, so I wonder how much that, like, no longer having his steady hand on the group affected, the script, in as much as there was a script, which I don't believe... I think it was a lot of improv, honestly. And B, what the image of the band was. So they kind of, even though it was tragic that he died, they were sort of set free from this like curated Beatles group image. And, you know,
because they didn't have anybody keeping them in line at that point.
A lot of people think that that's like the beginning of like when the group started to break up. I have no idea if that's really true. It makes sense that that might have been the beginning of the end. But I think that Paul was kind of like, well, I know how to do this. We know how to do great things, and so everything we do will be great. And that it's not great. It's a wild ride, but it is definitely, if you're not in for the wild ride, it is a slog, I think.
I guess like I'm probably gonna sound like such a moron when I say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway, just because my like music history is not my forte.
Yeah.
But this almost feels like the invention of the experimental album. Yeah. Even though it's not an album, or like the experimental music video, the one that all the fans hate.
Yes, I agree with that. I also am not a huge music history buff, but I think that a lot of their films, you know, certainly Help had these little like musical interludes that were kind of seen as music videos. A Hard Day's Night also, but for A Hard Day's Night, I feel like it was a little bit more woven into the story. So I think that the set of films in general had a big influence on what music videos then came to be.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Like I can already think of a few music videos that I don't think would exist without this.
Yeah.
But then also I feel like it's almost a career obligation for every band that makes it big to at some point do something that absolutely infuriates everybody who loves them.
Yes, you're probably
right.
And
they kind of have to just like stand against the winds that blow and say, well, screw you all, we were having fun. We'll do better next time.
Yeah.
The example that I'm thinking of here, because my music fan nerdery is all Queen, is when Queen put out their disco album, Hot Space. And everybody hated it.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, when they went on tour to promote the album, nobody actually wanted to hear songs from the album.
Yeah.
But it had kind of a similar, like, it's time for us to play feel to it. Like, we're going into a new era. Freddie has a mustache now. It's time for us to just have a little bit of fun and not care what the people around us think. And not have the image makers keeping us in line. And
yeah.
like, you have to do that at some point.
You have to do that.
Because you're going to get so bored otherwise.
Yeah, it's kind of like becoming a teenager in your music career. It's like, at some
Yes.
point you have to experiment. Excuse me. And I also feel like there's a certain amount of, we've made so much money that we can literally do whatever we want. And that is, societally, that is a attitude that is not great, because we see it quite a bit in non-pop musicians at the moment too. But putting that aside, you kind of have to just love the experimentation, because it's part of their journey. And even if it's a terrible album, which I don't think Magical Mystery Tour is a terrible album by any means, I don't know Queen's disco album. So
It's got Under Pressure on it.
Oh,
and
well,
that's the
that's
only song anybody wants to talk about from it.
yeah. But that's a great song, and now I'm kind of curious to listen to the rest of their disco album, because
I kind of like it, honestly.
okay, yeah, see, there's nothing wrong with doing something different, even if it doesn't totally work.
I do also have written down here, and I'm trying to remember what I meant by this. John Lennon is Andy Kaufman playing John Lennon.
Okay. That is
John
interesting.
Lennon feels more than the others here like he is playing a character version of himself. Like, even
Yes.
more so than Ringo Starr, who is explicitly playing a character version of himself.
Yes.
Here.
Well, I think that's sort of what I was saying in the beginning, where he's very much there to kind of make fun of the fact that he is there.
Yes.
And that,
I think that's what I meant by he's Andy Kaufman
Yeah.
playing John Lennon.
I mean, that's pretty apt.
He's doing this very self-conscious, goofy caricature of himself.
Yeah. Whereas I think in A Hard Day's Night, he was more actually himself. Like, the snarky things that were written into the script for that film were often things that he had actually said. Which, he is his way of being was often very sarcastic in the beginning of their career. And
I do, though, love the scene where he's sitting with the little, I think it's a little boy. I guess I'm not positive.
It's actually
but I think it's
a
a
girl,
little boy
yeah.
on his lap. That's a girl? Okay,
Yeah, I
never
looked
mind.
it- I looked
okay,
it
the
up.
little girl on his lap.
yeah, I wasn't sure either, because it is a fairly non-binary looking child, in as much as those
Children
existed
all kind of
in
look the same
1967.
up to a certain
Right?
point.
Yeah, but short hair, chubby cheeks, you can't really tell, but they're credited as Nicola, so I'm assuming they're a girl.
Okay, so either a girl or a Russian or Polish or otherwise
Boy.
Eastern European boy.
Yes.
Who knows? The cherubic child
Yes.
on John Lennon's lap while John Lennon is wearing a ridiculous feather-adorned fedora.
Yeah.
That's another sweet moment.
It's a very sweet moment, and he's playing this little game that I have 100% played with children as a preschool teacher, saying somebody's name and touching each finger and then going whoop in between the thumb and the forefinger.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's hard to describe now on the radio, but it's a very cute little scene, and she kind of is teasing him, and he is taking it, and it's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I also really want, on like the other flip side of the film's tone, I really want to see the horror movie remix of the I Am the Walrus sequence.
I haven't seen that either.
Because with a, I'm not sure it actually exists.
Oh, okay.
But I
thought you
want
were,
it to exist.
I thought you were
and I
referencing
wanna see
something
it.
that really existed. I was like,
I
oh,
feel
wow.
like it must. I feel like somebody must have taken the visuals from that and set them to a horror movie soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because I think it would work.
What I love about that sequence, the I Am the Walrus sequence, well, of course I love the Eggmen that are attached to each other with little bald caps on, looking like eggs, and just walking through the background is amazing. But I love how, so this is really before actual music videos existed. It feels like a music video made for a film production class in like the early 2000s, when you're learning how to shoot on 16 millimeter. You don't really know how to edit, but you shoot a bunch of shots and then you just smash them all together. Is how that felt to me. But they were doing it before anybody knew how to do a music video. So it was kind of this like first experimentation with that format. And yeah, that
The whole
scene
thing
in particular
really is experimental.
Yeah, it feels like proto music video because it
does.
Yeah.
And I suspect that one's tolerance for this movie or one's affection for this movie may line up very closely with how much one likes the concept of a music video.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I wonder, like, if somebody, let's say someone in Gen Z, were a Beatles fan, how they would feel about it. Because music videos have come, like, so far that they almost are not really a part of the experience of music these days.
I have some students I might need to do an experiment
Yeah.
on.
I mean, maybe MTV doesn't exist in the same way that it did when I was a teenager, and there's a new song, so you have to see the music video. Whereas these days it's, I guess people still make music videos, obviously, but I just feel like they're not as big of a deal.
I guess so, but I don't hear about them. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I hear about, like, concert videos or concert streaming, and not about, you know, if VH1 still exists anymore, whatever's on the VH1 top 10.
Yeah. I'm curious if your thoughts on the Death Cab for Cutie number.
It feels very Monty Python.
Yes. Okay.
And I think there's a reason for that, in fact.
Yeah. So I guess I should explain that phrase. The group, the bus stops, and this is when they go into I believe this is when they go into the tent and they come down in a nightclub, right? Yes.
Yes.
And
First we do Blue Jay Way, and then they come down
Yes.
and out in the nightclub.
Yeah, they go into the nightclub, and they've separated the men from the women. So this is only the men go into this nightclub. And
That's right, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's basically a strip club, sort of, but there's a band, and I don't have the name of the band written down. There's a band.
It's called
performing.
something very weird
It's
about,
a
like,
great name.
Bonzo and animals and...
I'm pulling it up real quick. The Bonzo Dog Doodah Band playing themselves.
Right.
And they're singing a song called Death Cab for Cutie while a lady takes off her clothes. And
Like you do.
And this is the song that the band Death Cab for Cutie got their name from, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
And
Why not? I always did wonder where that name came from.
Yeah, it's kind of a cute song, and I remember being kind of like, whoa, that lady is naked as a kid, but you don't see anything, you kind of see the back and maybe side boob of her, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely the most overtly risque portion of the film. We don't see what the women got to do during this period.
Is there always a censor bar on her boobs, or was that a feature of the version that we found?
You know what? I don't remember. I would have to go back and look at... You're right, because there is a full frontal shot that she is... I mean, she has her bottoms on, I think, but she's censored.
In the version that we watched, which is on the Internet Archive, there is a sudden and very prominent censor bar that in fact has the word censored on it when she takes off her top and turns around.
That's a great question. Maybe I will at some point be able to dig out my VHS tape and VHS player and get you an answer to that, but I'm not going to swear to when that will be.
I almost hope that it is just a standard feature of the movie, because this is not a movie that seems like it needs breasts in it.
No. Yeah.
There's enough here already.
There's enough here already. I had never before thought, like, okay, so we see this scene with this stripper. What did the ladies get on their portion of the tour that they were separated for the men? But I definitely had that reaction this time watching it.
Yeah, now I'm wondering too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they went and did another relay race or something.
We'll never know, sadly.
Or they went and sampled skirts for the for the Your Mother Should Know sequence.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So I think we're getting fairly close to reveal time, but I am dying to know, as a recovering cinematographer, what you think of Richard B. Starkey's cinematography in this movie.
Well, I should say I am a sucker for 16 millimeter. I earlier this year went and saw a movie basically just because it was shot on 16 millimeter. And
what was the movie?
I'm trying to remember what it's called. It was terrible. I have it
Fantastic.
here. It was called Harvest, and I saw it at the San Francisco Film Festival.
Okay.
And it suffers from that film suffers from a lot of things that 16 millimeter films tend to suffer from, like, lots of grain when you're shooting at twilight, and people don't quite still know how to compensate for that, because most people shoot on video these days. Mm-hmm. This, like I said before, it really felt like they were just having fun with the camera. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he actually was always the one operating the camera, but I do think that framing and everything was fine. I'm not going to say it was amazing. The stuff in Blue Jay Way, like, they're playing with filters, they're making things look ridiculous, and like you're having a mushroom trip. Mm-hmm. And that just, like, I mean, it did feel very film school, like, hey, what are all the things that we could possibly do? Let's do them. But that, I think there's a certain amount of joy in that, at least that I can identify with, from being given a camera for the first time.
And
so,
to my untrained eye, it looks more cinematic than anything that I saw in, for example, movie 43 recently. A movie ostensibly made by professionals.
Yeah. So, when you're shooting on film, which, again, was really the only way to shoot back then, you have to choose your shots carefully. And I think they very clearly did, because I don't know what the budget was for this, but you don't want to waste a lot of film on something that ends up looking terrible. So they did a good job. Whether it was just Ringo shooting, I question, but there are shots.
I feel like it can't have been.
No, I mean, there's plenty of shots that he's in, so at the very least he had a camera operator. And it's very possible, I probably should have Googled this, that they just gave him that credit for fun. And somebody... That would be
funny.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
We had some friends shoot it. They're all Richard B. Starkey now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Finally, I did really appreciate that this movie is short.
Oh, yes. It is a trim 52 minutes, even if it, at times, does not feel that way. Like, the scene with the sergeant it is like comes at the very beginning of the movie, and I remember being like, oh god, yeah, this, I forgot about this. Like, it's they go into a, like, military recruitment room where Paul is dressed as a private, I believe, and then there is a sergeant who is played by the guy who plays their manager in A Hard Day's Night. Somebody Spinetti, something like that. And he just speaks gibberish at them for like 3 solid minutes. And then it's over. And
at some point there's a cow.
Yes, there is a cow. A statue of a cow. Which made me wonder, are they trying to make us think this is really a cow? Because we see the pedestal it's standing on, so...
the cow's tail is kind of drifting in the breeze a little bit, so there was a point where I was like...
Is it a cow?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's bizarre, and watching it again yesterday, I was like, oh yeah, this is a moment where I could see a lot of people being like, I'm out. And it's at the beginning, it's in the first third of the movie, for sure. So.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, so here comes the moment of truth.
Okay.
What did I really think of this movie? Would you care to guess?
Well, sure, I will guess. I would say, just from the way that you're talking about it, you felt like it was a fun, ridiculous ride, but maybe not something you need to watch again.
Fair enough. So I'm going to attempt to hold my star rating up to the camera here.
Okay, she's giving it 2 stars.
Yeah, on the 1 to 5 scale. This is another one that I think I respect more than I actually like.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I said, I think I just love it because it gives me the warm fuzzies a little bit.
No, I understand that completely. And I think if I had more of an emotional attachment to the Beatles, that probably would have driven things up for me a little bit.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was always a Stones girl, so I don't have that.
Yeah.
And there were definitely, like, I came very close to, I was going to stick it out to the end, but during the Sergeant sequence, I came very close to being out.
Yeah. It's
like,
maybe,
okay, boys, that's quite enough of that.
Yeah, it's almost like, okay, you could have, there are a lot of low-budget movies that, well, actually, there are a lot of high-budget movies, too, that really need a better editor. And that portion is perhaps the only part of this movie that I felt that way for, because it is short, but that section is like, it's one shtick, and it's the same shtick for the whole scene, and it's like at least 3 or 4 minutes
and it goes on
long.
for a very long time. And the spaghetti sequence, or whatever that food substance is really gross.
It's so viscerally disgusting.
That was the other moment that I was like, maybe I don't want to, but it's only an hour. So
Yeah.
that's the nice thing, is it's only an hour.
Yeah. So,
but I do respect it, though, because it really is so shameless and so proud of being what it is. And I can't not have a little bit of affection in my heart for that.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I mean, I think I gave it 2.5 stars, and so it's not dissimilar from what you're saying, and yet, I don't know, the way I rate things on Letterboxd is all over the place, so that's just what felt right after watching it yesterday. And
the thing that I love, too, about doing this podcast is that I end up talking myself into believing that I liked movies. Yes. And at that point, like, believing that you like it is the same as actually liking it. Mm-hmm. And especially since, like, I don't think I'm going to run out and watch this one again anytime very soon. I will get to happily believe that I liked it probably more than I actually did for a very long time.
Right. And there are also plenty of movies that I did really enjoy and like that I never want to see again. So
yeah, that too.
They're usually very depressing movies. So this is not that. And it really it holds its own weird place in my heart and cinema history, I think.
Yeah, both of those things. And I also just have to thank you for getting me to see this movie that I honestly probably never would have gotten around to if somebody hadn't forced me to, which is another thing that I love about doing this.
Yeah, I think that's a great side effect of this podcast as well. I do really think, if you haven't seen Help and A Hard Day's Night, they're both Hard Day's Night is a masterpiece.
I saw Hard Day's Night a long time ago when I was too young to appreciate it, and I need to see it again now that I am old enough to know that things are good. So maybe that will be the thing that I rush out to see next.
Yeah, and then, Help is, again, it's just really its own weird thing, but it's great.
Okay, fantastic.
There's a sequence where they go curling wait, is that in A Hard Day's Night? Maybe that's in A Hard Day. Now I'm mixing up my Beatles movies, so we should probably just call this.
Well, either way sounds fun.
Yeah.
All right, well, Cameron, thank you so much for joining me for this month. Is there anything that you would like to plug while we have you here?
The audience hears me plug this every time I'm on, so I'll just do it again real quick. My Babysitters Club podcast, which is really geared towards millennials and Gen X people, but anyone who's read the Babysitters Club can appreciate it, is at Stony Brook Reunion. The Babysitters Club book club is the name of it. And come join us, even if you haven't read those books since you were 9 years old. It's a good time. So
doesn't matter. The Babysitter's Little Sister books were my first big kid chapter books, so those are always going to hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, that's it. I'm at Cameron Narwhal on Letterboxd, I believe, and that's just one N in the middle. So
All right, fantastic. And for everybody out there, hope you had as good a time as we did. Catch us on the main show, and we will see you next month. Bye.